The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight. Fear and loathing on the far left. They're not taking the Bush victory well. We will analyze it. What exactly happened in the last days of the campaign? We'll have some inside stuff for you. Why are Americans saying no to gay marriage, legalized pot, and freebies for illegal immigrants? We'll find out. And how must President Bush deal with Iran? Caution, you're about to enter a no-spin zone. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Fear and loathing on the left. That's the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. The writer Hunter Thompson's book, Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail, is a classic, and there's certainly big-time loathing in play after the president's re-election. In Chicago and a few other places, far-left demonstrators took to the streets in an annoying display of arrogance and condescension, basically saying that the election was foolish because it didn't go their way. Listen to this woman.
It turned into us being against war, being against occupation, being against sending our troops to get killed in foreign countries that don't need liberation. It's against the innocent children in other countries dying every day. It's against the occupation of Afghanistan, the occupation of Iraq, occupation of Palestine, and the support for Israel.
Countries that don't need liberation. As Talking Point said yesterday, the more strident the far left becomes, the more votes traditional and conservative candidates will get, but that won't stop the madness. Our pal Paul Krugman, writing in the New York Times today, says, quote, President Bush isn't a conservative. He's a radical, the leader of a coalition that deeply dislikes America. The Progressive magazine editorializes, we lost this time, but we refuse to lay down our principles and sleep with snakes. That's very nice. 59 million Americans are snakes because they voted for Mr. Bush. Isn't that nice? Writing in the LA Times, Jonathan Chait tells Bush voting Americans why they did it. You voted for Bush because of his position on one issue: he opposes gay marriage. Sure. And finally, writing in the Washington Post, E.J. Dionne says we are aghast at the success of a campaign based on vicious personal attacks. Apparently, E.J. missed the Michael Moore movie, the scores of defamatory anti-Bush books, and the George Soros-funded websites which routinely assassinate the president's character. E.J. just didn't get any of that. All of this hysteria is predictable, of course. One of the hallmarks of the fanatical left is its failure to do anything gracefully. John Kerry himself showed class in his concession speech, but there's no way the brutal left will ever follow that example. But again, the vitriol is not only mobilizing Republicans, it's alienating moderate Democrats. I hear that every day from them on the Radio Factor. Finally, while there has been a fair amount of uncharitable gloating from the right, remember that group doesn't have access to most newspapers and network news programs, but the loony left does, which is why their bitterness seeps into the national consciousness so much faster. But all in all, the progressive secular far-left agenda has taken a mighty blow. They've got bitter words, but not much else. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight. An inside look at the final days of the campaign from Time and Newsweek magazines. First Time. Joining us from Washington, Matt Cooper, White House correspondent for that publication. All right, both the magazines rushed out issues, and they're very interesting issues, and I really think everybody should pick them up. I want you to talk about the Clinton-Kerry stuff in the last days of the campaign first. Go.
Right. Well, as was reported at the time, Bill Clinton and John Kerry talked from Bill Clinton's hospital bed, while the president fell ill with his heart condition. He gave Kerry all kinds of advice about fighting. The behind-the-scenes story that we tell in Time this week is that, Kerry was not happy that that phone call leaked out. He felt that it made him look small compared to Clinton, getting advice from the great man, and that diminished his stature. So there was a lot of behind-the-scenes antipathy from that call.
All right, so you're saying that John Kerry called Clinton for advice, and also you say that Clinton told him to make President Bush the issue, because if he didn't, he was going to lose. But then the call leaked out, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys in Time magazine say some believe that Clinton's real interest was in clearing the way for Hillary to run in 2008. What do you base that on?
Well, it's my colleague Karen Tumulty's reporting this, and basically that was, speculation coming from John Kerry allies as to what the president's motive was. But there's no question that Kerry himself was peeved that it got out because he thought it made him
But I'm not
small.
connecting the dots here. Okay, I can understand why Kerry was mad that that private conversation got to the press, but what good would it do leaking? Why would that help Hillary Clinton in 2008?
Well, the thinking on the part of those who had that point of view was that it would diminish Kerry, possibly diminish his candidacy, and pave the way for Hillary.
That he was actually talking to Bill Clinton?
Well, just that it was part of making Kerry look small and kind of running his campaign down.
All right. Swift boat veterans, they heard Kerry, and it was controversy within his campaign on how to handle that. Why don't you explain that for us?
Well, that's right. You know, as we all know, the Swift boat veteran ads during the summer really hurt Kerry, coming out of what had seemed like a pretty successful convention, and then those ads just cut to the quick of Kerry's claim that because he was a Vietnam hero, he could lead the country in the war on terror. What we show in Time behind the scenes is there was a lot of back and forth in the campaign about it, with the people who basically said ignore the ads prevailing up front, and that proved to be an awful strategy that really hurt Kerry.
Yeah, I never understood why he didn't hold one press conference, answer all the questions about his Vietnam experience, say I'm only going to do this one time, and then refer back to the record. But what you report is that Kerry was furious after this took on momentum, correct? He was mad at his advisors?
Exactly. I mean, Kerry was often, you know, in the position of kind of distancing himself from his own staff, almost treating it as if it weren't his own campaign that was at fault, and as if he wasn't ultimately responsible. So he had taken the advice to lay low with the Swift boat ads and not give them credence, and then when that clearly was a failed strategy, he was mad at those whose advice he took.
Is that why he changed in midstream from the Kennedy people to the Clinton people? Because Joe Lockhart wound up running his campaign, and Lockhart's the guy that sabotaged him from coming on the Factor. We thought we had Kerry on here because Richard Holbrooke, very influential, and we like him a lot, went to Kerry and said, you got to do the Factor. You've got to reach some independents and people who are on the fence and stand up to the questions. And Lockhart sabotaged that by bad-mouthing a Fox News channel to Kerry, and Kerry bought it. So is that why Kerry changed, because of the Swift boat bets?
Yeah, well, that was a big part of it. I mean, there was a general feeling that his campaign was in a kind of miasma, and that he needed the battle-scarred veterans of the Clinton wars to come in and
play the
hardball he needed.
Did he dump? See, Mary Beth Cahill was Kennedy's chief of staff. She came over in the primaries to help Kerry. Kerry won the nomination, and then Kerry dumped her, and it was all about the Swift boat guys?
Well, Kerry more adds than subtracts. I mean, this is a guy who doesn't...
Come on, you know who was calling the shots in that campaign at the end. You know. Right.
Well, there's no question the Clinton folks were ascendant, but she never left, and he thanked her at the end. But he's into layering.
He's into layering. Well, he's got plenty of time to layer now, doesn't he, Mr. Cooper? He can layer all day long. You know, if you're going to run, seize the day. Carpe diem. Call your own shots.
Exactly.
Mr. Cooper, thanks very much. Next on the Rundown, Newsweek magazine has some inside stuff for us. They've got some good dirt on it. And later, no to gay marriage, no to illegal alien entitlements, and no to pot. What's going on? That's coming up.
Talking Points is brought to you by Morgan Stanley. One passion, one principle, one client at a time.
If you're a client of Morgan Stanley, we think it's important for you to understand exactly what you're investing in and how it fits in your overall financial plan, and that this is a conversation we should keep having over time, because our relationship is about more than investing your money. It's about helping you gain a full understanding of your investments together. To learn more about what we're doing to help individual investors succeed, visit morganstanley.com.
Introducing Mercury Mariner. Save yourself the hassle. Get to. If your doctor says you're at risk for a heart attack, there's a Bear made just for your heart, and it can have a big impact on your life. It's Bear Low Dose. It was the first low-dose safety-coated aspirin, and it can significantly reduce your risk of a heart attack. Aspirin is not appropriate for everyone, so be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen. And remember, no other brand prevents more heart attacks than Bayer. The more you know, the more you trust Bayer.
Kings bowed to him. Emperors fled from him. Even wild horses knelt before him. Alexander the Great. On the History Channel. Check your local listings. He wasn't Alexander the Timid.
At BASF, we don't make the car. We make it more reflective. We don't make a lot of the products you buy. We make a lot of the products you buy better. BASF.
From America's Newsroom, I'm Derry Alexander. U.S. warplanes pounding Fallujah. Witnesses are calling the strikes the strongest in months. This comes as more than 10,000 American troops prepare for an all-out assault on the terrorist stronghold. Iraq's prime minister warned the window is closing to avoid the ground offensive. U.S. planes have reportedly dropped leaflets urging women and children to leave the city. Yasser Arafat reportedly on his deathbed, the Palestinian leader said to be in a coma, which some say is irreversible. Palestinians admit, however, Arafat is, quote, at a critical juncture between life and death. Meanwhile, a quiet battle being waged over where he will be buried. Arafat has said he wants to be buried in Jerusalem, but Israel refuses. It's the third day of deliberations in the Scott Peterson murder trial and still no verdict. Late in the day, jurors asked to review some photographs. Fox News has learned that the pictures were taken by cops at Peterson's home and warehouse the day he reported his wife Lacey missing. Same-sex marriage now legal in 6 of Canada's 10 provinces. A court ruling in Saskatchewan finds that the only man and woman definition of marriage is unconstitutional. Canada's federal government is asking its Supreme Court to consider a move making same-sex marriage legal nationwide. The decision isn't expected till next year. More news in 30 minutes. O'Reilly continues.
Continuing now with our lead story inside the final days of the campaign. Joining us from Washington, Evan Thomas, Assistant Managing Editor of Newsweek magazine. In your piece, you say that Kerry actually said, quote, "I can't believe I'm losing to this idiot." Are you 100% sure that Kerry said that?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
We had good sources.
All right, so you're 100% sure, because that's kind of disrespectful, don't you think?
Well, I think in the heat of a campaign, they say all sorts of stuff. I mean, I bet you he said worse.
All right. Yeah, when I read it, I went, yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, if he's frustrated and tired and all of that. All right, when we talked, obviously you heard some of the interview with Mr. Cooper. And you have something about the Clinton phone call as well, but it has to do with gay marriage. What was that all about?
Well, Clinton is always trying to triangulate and move the Democrats to the center and trying to get votes in the red states. And so, as part of that, he said, look, to Kerry, you ought to come out in favor of some of these bans on gay marriage and local bans on gay marriage. You ought to get behind that. And Kerry said no, wouldn't do it.
Do you know why? Because Kerry himself said he's against gay marriage.
Yeah, but it's one thing to be personally against it. It's another thing to endorse bans on it. I actually think this is a principled decision by Kerry. He could have been politic, as Clinton was suggesting. In retrospect, politically, it would have been a smart thing to do that. I mean, maybe, in fact, actually decisive.
All right, now...
But to Kerry's credit, he didn't.
To Kerry's credit, for people who believe in gay marriage, but for people who don't, then they're not going to give him credit for it.
No. Look, either way, I don't care what your position is. The point is, if Kerry didn't believe it was the right thing to do, he did a principled thing.
Okay, but I need an explanation of why he didn't believe it was the right thing to do when he says he's personally against it. I never got the explanation. We've asked the question.
But one thing is how you feel personally. It's another thing whether you want to legislate.
But for a presidential contender, he needs to explain it, and he never did, and that's one of the reasons he lost, in my opinion. All right, let's go on to James Carville. We talked about the switch from the Kennedy people, Mary Beth Cahill, to the Clintonistas, and Carville had a lot to do with that, you report.
Right, Carville. Never a shy guy. Actually, it felt bad that he hadn't been complaining enough in August. The campaign was going down the tubes, and that Carville had to step up about it. So he summoned this meeting with the top Kerry people, and he basically threatened him, said, look, I'm going to go public with this on Tim Russert if you guys don't make some changes here. And the changes, he wanted a better rapid reaction. You know, the Clintonistas are good at that. And the Kerry campaign was just terrible at rapid response.
So this was swift vote based as well. Carville wanted a more aggressive rebut of that.
I think the swift vote stuff was a culmination of a series of just being slow and not being able to respond. I mean, the Bush campaign skated circles around the Kerry campaign. It was like watching a mismatch in a football game or something where one team just clobbered the other.
So our pal James Carville had a big influence on how the Kerry campaign was run. That's interesting. Teresa Heinz, Kerry, you write about her that she was a problem? Would you describe it that way?
Yes, I would. I mean, look, Kerry loves his wife and respects her and thinks she's independent and candid and all that, and a lot of voters felt the same way. But she was pretty self-involved and self-referential, and you know, she made the campaigning about her, not about him. And she would give these long monologues to introduce him, and the voters couldn't understand where she was going, and she was always complaining, and she was kind of a hypochondriac, and she was very difficult. And you may have noticed that she didn't travel with her husband for most of the last 2 months.
And is that why, well, she didn't travel with him because they were afraid she was going to say something bad? Or
yeah, it was bad. It was just bad. She wasn't happy with him on the stage. She was saying stuff that was getting in the press and drowning out his message.
Why wasn't she happy with him on the stage?
Well, you saw her. She would, you know, she'd stare away, or she'd.
Yeah, but I want to know why. I don't know why. I saw her.
Because she's a difficult person. She's a demanding, difficult person.
Does she want to be the center of attention? Was that what it was all about?
Well, yeah. I mean, look at that photograph. I mean, talk about ruining a photograph. When they picked Edwards, there's that standard shot of the families together, and they had this beautiful scene, and good-looking, you know, couples. And there's Teresa reaching out to pull a thumb out of Edward's little kid. The picture was all about her.
I would have
not about him.
Yeah, I understand. So Teresa didn't help her husband in the campaign. Is that what you're saying?
Well, look, I mean, she may have helped him at some level, but she sure hurt on ways that were apparent to the staff.
Right.
It was very frustrating.
Now, we only have 30 seconds left. I got to show you. You made a comment last summer that the media was all for Kerry. Right. Didn't help, did it?
No, well, he might have lost worse. I mean, I don't know. I do believe that the media was for Kerry. Obviously, it didn't help him enough.
You bet. Mr. Thomas, thanks very much. Both articles in Time and Newsweek are worth reading. And by the way, we have an interesting BillO'Reilly.com poll going on. What motivated your presidential vote? Select one: terrorism, Iraq, the economy, and anti-Bush media. BillO'Reilly.com. We'll be right back.
This program is brought to you by Singular Wireless.
What if two of the biggest players in the game became one? That's the idea behind AT&T Wireless joining forces with Singular to bring you the largest digital voice and data network in America, the new Singular. We're raising the bar.
Welcome to the meeting that's nothing like a meeting. No travel, no downtime, just pure collaboration. Microsoft Office Live Meeting. The service that lets you collaborate with groups small to large. See for yourself with a free trial. All it takes is a phone, PC, and an internet connection. And no matter where you are, it's as if you're all at the same table. Visit Microsoft.com/meet now or call us today.
Katie was sure of her cholesterol plan. She took medication, she ate right and ran. Yet it wasn't enough to get bad cholesterol low. What's this? I'm still here in the land of no. Switch to Crestor, her doctor said. You're not to blame. All cholesterol drugs simply aren't the same. When Crestor performed in a head-to-head test, its lowering effect was clearly the best. Crestor's proven effective, that's well understood. Would you like to try it? Why, yes. Yes, I would.
Ask your doctor about Crestor. Crestor is not for everyone, including people with liver disease and women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. It's
Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems. Tell your doctor about other medications you are taking, or if you experience muscle pain or weakness, as they may be a sign of serious side effects.
Since Katie switched to Crestor, her cholesterol's much less. With Crestor and diet, it's the land of success. Get your free trial today and you just might declare, I'm a Crestor success. Now you're getting somewhere.
It's a heavyweight night. Chris Byrne defends his crown against giant Jamil McCline. Andrew Galata's out to take down Jean Ruiz. Top contender Hasim Rahman against bone crusher Cali Meehan. Plus four-time champ Evander Holyfield. Byrne versus McCline. Ruiz versus Galata. Rahman versus Meehan. And Holyfield versus Donald. Saturday, November 13th. Live on pay-per-view.
Ruler of Macedonia at age 16. Toppled an empire at age 25. Conquered the known world at age 31. Alexander the Great. Sunday night at 8, only on the History Channel. There's a reason they didn't call him Alexander the Spineless.
Personal story segment tonight. There's a fundamental political change going on among many everyday Americans, the folks. Just look at the electoral map, a sea of Bush red states, isolated pockets of Kerry blue states. Urban progressives versus rural and suburban traditionalists. Joining us now from Washington is Thomas Frank, a registered Democrat and author of the best-selling book, What's the Matter with Kansas? How Conservatives Won the Heart of America. Also, Mr. Frank, you have an op-ed piece in the New York Times today, Why They Won. Who's they?
I guess I would be referring to Republicans, but I don't write the title, you know.
Yeah, because, I mean, they sounds like they're not part of America. Who's they, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
I think there was
I'm sorry about that. That's not my style.
No, it's the New York Times style. We understand that. All right, there are three things in your column today I want to talk to you about. I'm going to quote the first one. You write, it is an uprising of the common people whose long-term economic effect has been to shower riches upon the already wealthy and degrade the lives of the very people who are rising up. Who is degrading the life? Now, is that the Bush administration degrading the lives of everyday folks? Is that what you're saying?
I wouldn't I mean, you could make the argument that it's the Bush administration, but I would be, in the book, in What's the Matter with Kansas, I point the finger at the entire conservative movement going all the way back to 1968. If you look at, income statistics and the sort of distribution of wealth in this country from about 1980 up to the present time, you'll notice that it has become increasingly skewed towards the upper class. And this
okay,
is
but I don't know how,
because of nature.
Yeah, all right. So you believe in income redistribution. You believe the government has a moral right to distribute income across.
I believe in a balance of power between management and labor.
All right, and I do too, by the way. But remember, it's private industry.
You and me, Bill.
Private industry, and the government doesn't have a right to regulate it. But I think morally, you're right.
But workers have a right to.
But you wrote these words. You wrote these words. All right. And degrade the lives of the very people who are rising up. And I want to know whose life is being degraded and who's doing it.
All right. In the book, I discuss a lot of different aspects of different people from different walks of life in my home state of Kansas, beginning with the affluent suburbs of Kansas City, which are white-collar areas, benefited very handsomely from the new economy years. As wages, as management was able to hold the line on wages in this country, these people did spectacularly well. And the affluent suburbs there, it's like heaven on earth.
All right, so you're saying that corporate America is degrading the lives of workers? Is that what you're saying?
We haven't got to that yet. Then you go to a place like Wichita. Wichita is a heavily blue-collar town. It's where Boeing has a giant factory there. They built B-29s during the war. Great town, by the way, one of my favorite places in America. But it's a place where corporate management has really, they've screwed these people over in a lot of ways.
Well, they don't have to work there. I mean, look, this is a supply and demand economy. Then, all right, let me get on to another one. All right, I got it. I'm getting the point of view. All right, now you say, despite huge get-out-the-vote efforts and enormous treasury, Democrats lost the battle of voter motivation before it started.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, we had a record turnout. Kerry got 56 million votes. It seems like they were motivated to vote for Kerry, but not as many as motivated to vote for Bush.
And I thought, I was surprised by that as well. Before the election, I had friends who have never shown any interest in politics.
Yeah, so how can you say that the Democrats lost voter motivation?
Because it's the numbers. You look at it.
But more people thought Bush was a better candidate. It's not about motivation. It's about deciding who the better candidate is.
Right. Now, if you look at, let me refer you to another article that I wrote for New York Magazine back a few months ago during the Republican convention. And I interviewed a number of people at that convention that told me this was going to be a battle over turnout. We're going to be
big turnout. Bush won. Period.
Yeah, he did.
A big turnout.
Right. Yeah,
60% he won. People thought he was a better guy.
But here was the fascinating thing, and this is what is. I mean, it wasn't widely reported. Maybe you talked about it. I don't know. That what the Republican strategy was very different than the Democratic strategy in this election. The Republicans went to their base. Rove talked about this all the time. Republicans went to their base. They mobilized their base. That's who they turned to. The Democrats did the usual thing that they always do. They went for the mushy center. They were like, let's not offend anybody.
Well, the Democrats don't have as big a base as the Republicans. 40% of people identify themselves as conservative, liberal only 20. One more thing. One more thing. You blame, in this article today, you say corporate scandals that have countenanced and in some ways enabled under the Republican Bush regime. You know as well as I do those corporate scandals were hatched under the Clinton administration. That's when they all went down. Come on.
Yeah. There's another book I want to refer you to. It's called One Market Under
You sound like Kerry. Go to my website. You wrote this today. You wrote it today.
Yeah. And I stand by what I said, Bill. I mean, look.
The corporate scandals were under Clinton. We cleaned them up under Bush.
They're going on right now.
Sure, and they're knocking them down.
Industry right now.
All right.
Spitzer, he's a Democrat. He's on
Frank,
my team.
I think you need to reread this article because all three of those things are shaky. But I enjoyed your book. Thank you very much for coming
out. Thanks a lot, Bill.
Plenty more ahead as a factor moves along this evening. An outrageous act by UN Chief Kofi Annan. You're not going to believe it. And then, why the voters said no to gay marriage, legalized pot, and entitlements to illegals. We hope you stay tuned for those reports.
$66,000 people in 50 countries. And every day, a two-person financial operation. You and us. UBS.
My best friends. We couldn't be closer. But when it comes to nutrition, we couldn't be farther apart.
That's why Centrum is so complete. Each of them can put Centrum to work in the way that's best to help them stay as healthy as the day they met. Centrum, more complete from A to Zinc.
Trailers don't have anti-lock brakes, crumple zones, or airbags. That's why we designed the new Ford Super Duty with the only integrated trailer brake controller, part of our exclusive Tow Command system. Because what good is towing a 19,200-pound trailer if you can't control it? This is the next Ford Super Duty, built Ford tough.
Make it hard, so all the boys and girls don't stop, make them happy, have fun, get up, put your love on, celebrate the good spirit, and hope that more days like this to come, joy to the world, that's what I'm talking about. So all the boys and girls, joy.
Who knew Mark was so
big and chocolatey with a little birdie. Come on, behave yourself. Focus.
especially
right now.
You should know what's in this stuff. Feels like
Licorice with
a little piece of heaven between my
outstanding
toes.
Free time to create your own story. Hyatt Gold Passport's Faster Free Nights is back. Every 2 stays earn you a free night at Hyatt's worldwide when you pay through MasterCard. Now through February 28th.
Tonight at 10, it was a bitter and hard-fought trial with both sides claiming a victory. Now, could this high-stakes waiting game be coming to an end? And where does the jury stand?
I'm Greta Van Susteren, and join me on the record only on Fox News Channel.
This weekend, it's a complete wrap-up of Election 2004. Team Washington has political insight, in-depth analysis, and the fallout as the president prepares for a second term. Only one network is the true channel of political record. Only one Fox News Channel.
Unresolved Problem segment tonight, the war in Iraq. Listen to this. Last Sunday, UN Chief Kofi Annan sent a letter to the USA, Britain, and Iraq warning that an attack on Fallujah would be bad. Can you believe this guy? Fallujah, as you know, is a safe haven for terrorists who are killing Americans and Iraqis every day, and Annan does not want to back aggressive action to stop that. Joining us now from Washington, Dr. Larry Korb, former Assistant Secretary of Defense under President Reagan. Dr. Korb is currently a senior fellow at the Center for American Progress. You know, this Annan, I don't like him. I don't think he has any idea how to deal with the world terror threat. But I just want to read you something. This is from the LA Times, who apparently got a hold of this letter. This is what Annan writes. The threat or actual use of force not only risks deepening the sense of alienation of certain communities, but would also reinforce perceptions among the Iraqi population of a continued military occupation. Is this guy living in the land of Oz? I mean, we got people getting killed every single day because Fallujah is out of control and he don't want to do anything about it.
Well, you got to remember, he's not the only one that's said that. The president of Iraq has said pretty much the same thing.
Look what a disaster that's been. Well, I mean, it's been an absolute disaster for the last 6 months to give these terrorists a safe haven where they can create chaos every single day.
But you got to remember that the United States, or the multinational forces, are there under the terms of a UN resolution. We used the UN last year to pick a leader, to pick Mr. Alawi. If it wasn't for the UN, we wouldn't have been able to hand over power. So if you were going to do this, you should have worked with the United Nations. His special representative said this 2 weeks ago, that this is how Annan felt, and nobody responded to it.
Doctor, the UN cut and ran out of there the first time they got attacked, number one. Number two, we're fighting a war there. We got American lives in jeopardy there. We're not going to be taking orders from Kofi Annan about how to fight that war. I think we've made a tremendous mistake by fighting a Vietnam-style action where we let the enemy take the battle to us.
Well, we made tremendous mistakes in Fallujah. We were on again, off again.
Yeah.
The Army had one policy, the Marines another, and now we're having to live with the consequences. But let me tell you something which nobody's paid attention to. The negotiations that are going on between Alawi's government and the leaders in Fallujah, they've said they're willing to surrender, but they want the searches to be done by the Iraqi forces, not by the Americans. And Alawi is insistent that the American forces do the searches. There's no reason for the United States forces to have to.
Of course there is, Doctor. I mean, we're looking for a guy named Zarqawi, one of the top terrorists in the world. The Iraqi forces aren't up to searching for him, and the Iraqi forces are rife with people who are on the other side. You know that. It's all full. They're all full of terrorists who have signed up, you know, to get on the inside. Come on.
Yeah, but let me tell you this. If you win the battle and lose the war, you haven't done anything.
If you protect your soldiers, that's your... Look, President Bush's first obligation is to protect American soldiers, not let these people continue to kill us while sitting around for Kofi Annan's approval.
President Bush's first obligation was to put in enough troops so that this wouldn't have happened. He didn't do that.
I agree with you. In hindsight, you're right. Now it's life or death for the guys that are and the gals that are there, and we can't be taking orders from Annan because he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about.
Well, the fact of the matter is that the United States is not in charge anymore. When we handed over power to the Iraqi government last June, we agreed, the president agreed, that we would not be in charge.
Look, this is a cooperative effort, and Alawi has said we are going to go in there and neutralize a terrorist in Fallujah. So let's do it and get it over with, because you can't have an election with these people running out bombing all day long, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, but the president of Iraq, the head of the Muslim Clerics Association, the Sunnis, said, if you do this, you can't have an election either.
Well, let's see. Let's see. You know, if we do this, if we get Zarqawi, I'll tell you what, that whole thing's going to turn around if you get him. This is fighting a defensive look. Doctor, you've been around long enough, man. You know what happened in Vietnam. You can't be fighting a political war. You can't do it. I'll give you the last word.
In Vietnam, we won all the battles and lost the war, and that's what I think we have to be careful of here.
All right. Doctor, we appreciate your point of view as always. Thanks very much. When we come back, the voters speak. No gay marriage, no legalized pot, and no entitlements for illegals in Arizona. We'll have that analysis after these messages as the factor continues all across the USA and all around the world.
America's Newsroom, I'm Derry Alexander. A group led by Iraq's most wanted terrorist reportedly calling for the release of a kidnapped aid worker. Word is News Service reports followers of Abu Musab al-Zakari want those holding Margaret Hassan to let her go. They say she has done nothing wrong and that they would free her if she fell into their hands. We found out who won the race for the White House Wednesday, but only today did we learn the electoral total. Iowa, the final state up in the air, was called in the president's favor. That brings the count to 286 electoral votes for President Bush and 252 for Senator Kerry. Former President Clinton says Democrats shouldn't sit around and whine about the election. Speaking to a Washington think tank, Clinton said he hopes President Bush takes advantage of the opportunities, like reducing our dependence on foreign oil and pursuing peace in the Middle East. And a first grader in Florida is suspended after she bought more than $1,000 worth of crack cocaine to school. Tangelo Park Elementary also sent a letter to her parents explaining how an anti-drug campaign led another student to recognize the crack. Her mother's explanation for it, well, she must have gotten it while trick-or-treating. Mom is under investigation now. More headlines at the top of the hour. O'Reilly continues.
Every great story starts with a great adventure. Introducing the all-new Nissan Pathfinder with a 270 horsepower engine, 3-row seating for 7, GPS navigation and DVD entertainment, and more off-road capability than ever before. Because you can't talk about the mountaintop unless you actually see the mountaintop. Tell better stories in the new 7-passenger, 270 horsepower Nissan Pathfinder. Lease the new 7-passenger Nissan Pathfinder with a special introductory rate.
Imagine bringing a catalog to life by customizing it for each team, printing it in each language, and personalizing it for each customer. Imagine using Xerox digital technology to do all this and having your responses increase by 40%. It's a nice image, isn't it?
Withstands short drops, dust, and vibration. Coast-to-coast walkie-talkie, speakerphone, GPS enabled. Available in 2 colors. Act now and save $50 on the i530. Call 8889-NEXTEL to shop or find a Nextel store. Get a power plan for unlimited night, weekend, and walkie-talkie minutes. Call 8889-NEXTEL now.
Even close up, hair color should look natural. That's why today's Just for Men with X-Gray Science targets only the gray hair, replacing it with subtle tones that match your own color. In 5 easy minutes, vitamin-enriched Just for Men rejuvenates hair, brings back a natural look, no matter how close up she gets. Just for Men with X-Gray Science, the Rejuvenator.
You're watching the #1 program on cable news. Enter the No Spin Zone on the O'Reilly Factor, the most powerful name in news. Fox News Channel.
Thanks for staying with us. And Bill O'Reilly in the Factor follow-up segment. Tonight, traditional Americans were out in force last Tuesday, as you know, not only re-electing President Bush, but also voting down some progressive initiatives. For example, all 11 states that had a ban of gay marriage on the ballot upheld the ban, even Oregon. In Alaska, legalized pot was voted down 57-43. And in Arizona, voters rejected state entitlements for illegal aliens 56-44. Only in California was a progressive initiative passed, as voters overwhelmingly approved money for embryonic stem cell research. Joining us now from Los Angeles, political analyst Pat Caddell, and here in the studio, Fox News analyst Monica Crowley, who also does talk radio on WABC in New York City weekend mornings. All right, Monica, on the gay marriage initiative, the prevailing wisdom is that this put President Bush into office.
It was an amazing dynamic, Bill. When we got this exit polling data that said gay marriage was the mobilizing issue, was incredible, because the conventional wisdom going into this election on Tuesday was, hey, it was all about the war on terror. It was the war on Iraq. And yet voter after voter came out of these polling places and said, yo, gay marriage, we don't want any part of it. 11 states put it on the ballot. You know what's so ironic is that 4 Supreme Court justices in Massachusetts legalized gay marriage. That is Kerry's home state. This would never have been on the ballot in these 11 states, including Ohio, if that hadn't happened in Massachusetts. So the irony is that perhaps because it was voted down in Ohio, it really mobilized traditional voters,
I don't think there's any question about it.
moderates opposed to it, which may have denied Kerry the
Do you think that's why he carried Ohio, Pat?
Yeah, no question Ohio, because of Southeast Ohio. You know, for months I've been saying this. I felt like I've been the lonely voice after analyzing Missouri. And it's the Democrats, you know, people are running around saying it's all the right-wing Christian nuts doing this. No, this carried in the southeast part of Ohio, where the old Copperhead counties, which are essentially Democratic. They gave Jimmy Carter Ohio in 1976, are the places where Bush's vote goes through the roof. And it allowed him to make up the deficits in Hamilton County, along with the margins he got in Republican counties. But understand this too: in every one of these places, the margins were built hugely. In Oregon, millions and millions of dollars were spent by the forces trying to defeat that amendment because they believed, the pro-gay forces, because they believed that they could defeat it in Oregon. It passed 57-43. In Mississippi, it passed 86-14.
Yeah, well, we expected in the South, but Oregon.
But where 42% of the vote is black, remember, in Mississippi.
Right.
So what I'm saying is,
but there's no difference between black and white Americans on this issue.
No, of course not. No, that's not
everybody.
the point.
Overwhelmingly, Americans don't want legalized gay marriage. Now let's get to. Go ahead. Let's get to legalized pot up in Alaska.
Right.
You would think anywhere in the country, Monica, that, you know, if you're indoors 8 months out of the year,
what else is there
you know, but they don't want it by a big margin. Why do you think that happened?
In fact, there were 3 states voting on this: Alaska, Montana, and Oregon. Montana was the only one that actually passed medicinal marijuana.
But this wasn't medicinal in Alaska. This was
really
flat out legalized.
Yes,
no, this was opening
over the top in Alaska. It was talking about buying, selling, using, and distributing marijuana. They wanted to allow that, not just for medicinal purposes, but just in general. And the voters there said, absolutely not.
Why?
We're not doing this because it's a recreational drug. And I think there's a bigger point to be made here on all of these social issues we're talking about here tonight with you, Bill. And that is, what we saw on Tuesday was a more profound conservative majority than I think we even saw in the Reagan years. And that's why these voters across the board are voting down these progressive measures.
Whoa. Let's understand. It's rational. It's being rational. The attitudes about, for instance, on gay marriage are not because it's conservative. It's because people think it's stupid. But let me come to this. Notice what happened in Montana. People are in Oregon. Montana passed medical use of marijuana, which 9 other states have done. In Oregon, they wanted to expand the law to allow people to have as much as a pound of it and so forth. That was turned down by the 58-42.
But I still don't understand, Pat, why Alaskans...
People will not... They're libertarians. They don't care. Let me put it this way, Bill, for the very reason this. They don't care that anybody... They're all libertarians up there. They don't care that anyone smokes it, but they're not going to legalize it. That's another step that crosses a line that the people feel starts breaking down other walls. They don't care if anybody does. They
don't want the incremental. I got it. Now, in Arizona, and this is a fairly easy one, even though John McCain, the governor of Arizona, were against it, the Arizonans
the entire
said,
business community,
no more state money for illegals.
I know. Proof of citizenship to register to vote, proof of immigration status to receive all kinds of government services. What do you know, Bill? Finally, some common sense when it comes to illegal immigration.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
And this was a grassroots measure, too. This was by a couple of different groups who got together and said, we want to take our state back. And you know what's interesting? When you take a look at all of the breakdowns of how all of the counties along the border with Mexico voted, it's sort of a mixed picture, but the majority voted for President Bush. So there's an impulse there to really tighten up the borders. It's sending a signal to the White House. But it's sending a signal to the White House.
But why, Pat, did McCain and the governor, I think it's Napolitano, her name is, why were they not against what obviously is a populist movement to say no more spending?
The entire business community was against it. They're concerned about relations to Mexico. They're concerned about looking like, you know, the bigotry. It also had some provisions that are a little questionable. But the point is, look, next to gay marriage, by all those measures, 11 measures, the Republicans put those on the ballot. People did record numbers. In Arizona, the same thing. People said, we've had enough of this, and basically it was grassroots, and that issue almost really hurt Bush. early on when he came out with his original proposal. That is the second hottest issue in the country that's bubbling right now.
I agree, and
It's going to get worse.
And it has a national security dimension to it.
Both parties are on the wrong side.
Both parties are on the wrong side. Absolutely right. We have nobody standing up for the folks in this one. Now, last one, and we only have a minute left to go. And I'm going to let Pat do it first. 20 seconds. Stem cell research, embryonic. People of California already in debt up to here, now going to incur more debt to have it. Why did it happen?
Let me tell you what happened here. First of all, this was the politically correct, happy movement. The governor, I was amazed at Governor Schwarzenegger. But here's the interesting thing, Bill. They raised, the pro-forces put this on the ballot, individuals. They raised $26 million. The opponents had no money and never got a message out. And here's the thing. The Hispanics whose children had all of their hospitals, 13 hospitals closed in L.A. that service basically poor Hispanics, and yet they're going to pay for what the rich people wanted, which I find
so you just thought it was politically correct, that kind of trendy deal.
The Republicans had a chance to break the Hispanic vote. In this state, George Bush only went up 4% with Hispanics compared to double digits everywhere else.
Okay.
The Republican Party could have broken them on this issue.
I think on the stem cell issue in California, there was a very powerful coalition put together. A lot of Republicans, the governor of the state, Arnold Schwarzenegger, very popular, the former Secretary of State, and that really put it into bold relief when Christopher Reeve passed.
All right, thank you both very much, as always. We appreciate it. And coming up, Iran once again defies the world on nuclear development. What should President Bush do, and when should he do it? Directly ahead.
That restaurant was great.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Is that where you take all your first dates?
Maybe.
Oh! That girl almost hit me.
Women drivers.
Introducing the highly maneuverable Mercury Mariner.
Ruler at age 16. Toppled an empire at 25. Conquered the world at 31. Alexander the Great on the History Channel. Check your local listings. He wasn't Alexander the Spineless.
My best friends, we couldn't be closer. But when it comes to nutrition, we couldn't be farther apart.
That's why Centrum is so complete. Each of them can put Centrum to work in the way that's best to help them stay as healthy as the day they met. Centrum, more complete from A to Zinc.
Attention men and women suffering from hair loss. Now, with Avocor, a world leader in hair regrowth, you don't have to be bald, even if you have a family history of hair loss.
The main reason for thinning hair and baldness is hereditary hair loss. Just because there is a family history of hair loss doesn't mean you have to suffer. Avocor is specially formulated to reverse hereditary hair loss and regrow new healthy hair. Our formula targets the hair follicle to effectively stop hair loss and stimulate new hair growth. Before you consider expensive transplant surgery, remember, Avocor is FDA approved to regrow new healthy hair for men and women. Unless you take action right away, the problem is likely to get worse.
With Avocor's new formula, go from this to this on the first application. Just look at the difference. Call 800-279-1552 for doctor-recommended Avocor. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Call 800-279-1552. 800-279-1552.
Kings bowed to him. Emperors fled from him. Even wild horses knelt before him. Alexander the Great. Sunday night at 8, only on the History Channel. He wasn't Alexander the Timid. Raised to be a king by his mother. Trained to be a warrior by his father. Taught to be a philosopher by Aristotle. Alexander the Great. Sunday night at 8, only on the History Channel. He wasn't Alexander the Dumbass.
$4 late fee here, $8 there. When was it due again? Ah, the pressure. Hey, I just want to watch a movie. That's why I have Stars from Dish Network. Forget the hassles of the video store. For the price of a few DVD rentals, I get hundreds of hit movies each month on a variety of Stars channels. And this is how easy it is to watch them. So long, late fees. Hello, Stars.
Stars is just one of the 8 great movie channels in the Stars Super Pack. You'll get over 350 different movies a month. Call 888-DISH-130.
Back at the book segment tonight, the European Union met with Iranian officials today about Iran's desire to develop nuclear capability. In my interview with him, President Bush said he would not allow that to happen, period. But Iran remains defiant. Joining us now from Miami is Dr. Graham Allison, the author of the new book, Nuclear Terrorism, The Ultimate Preventable Catastrophe. You know, it doesn't really get any easier for Bush. He wins the election, and now he's got to turn around and face the Iranians who are screaming in their parliament, down, death with the USA, and we're going to develop our nuclear weapon. We don't care. How long do you give these people?
Well, I think that President Bush is likely to turn to this issue in earnest now. I think we've given it too long, in my view, already. I think it doesn't get better with time. I think there's a little bit of hope in the discussions that the Europeans are now having that some of the pieces are falling in place, but it's still going to need President Bush to focus on it, to assemble all the carrots and the sticks in particular if a deal is going to be struck.
Now, it's quite obvious that the Iranians don't need nuclear power to generate electricity and things like that for their folks. They've got enough oil and they've got enough fossil fuel to do that all day long. So there really isn't anything other than Iran being contrarian and threatening in this at all, is there?
I think that anybody who doubts that Iran is seriously seeking nuclear weapons is just missing the facts. And I think that while the international agency process has been giving them one chance and then another chance, they've shown themselves to be serial liars. They confess whenever they're confronted with unambiguous evidence, and then they go back to it in a different fashion. So I think what this is going to take is very focused and intense diplomacy that offers them carrots that make it attractive on the one hand, and that doesn't try to humiliate them, but on the other hand, that has a credible military threat to destroy the facilities if that's
yeah,
the
they
last
don't go along with it. Do you have any
resort.
confidence at all in the United Nations to do anything about this?
Well, I think that the IAEA process has actually been pretty helpful here because they've been tracking down one lead after another.
Yeah, but why don't we have a Security Council resolution already ordering Iran to cease and desist?
Well, because the other members of the IAEA, in particular our allies in Europe, Britain, France, and Germany, have been pursuing a different track, and neither the Europeans nor the Russians nor the Chinese have been willing to refer to find Iran in violation.
It's unbelievable.
And to refer it to the Security Council.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? I mean,
it is, but you have to remember that when North Korea withdrew from the NPT, and North Korea is a much more egregious case than the case of Iran, it got referred to the Security Council at which there was no agreement on doing anything, so nothing was done.
Yeah, but the problem is with Iran, you got Al-Qaeda's right in there. You got Al-Qaeda's living right in Tehran.
And you got Hezbollah.
Yeah,
Really,
you got all of
Hezbollah.
these nuts in there, and I mean, they could just hand the stuff off to them conceivably in a few years.
I think that's the grave danger.
You bet. That's what separates it from North Korea, who just, all right. All right, Doctor, you've written the best book about this, nuclear terrorism, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us tonight.
Well, I hope that President Bush turns to it now and solves it.
Well, he has to. And next, we will wrap things up with the most ridiculous item of the day in some of your mail.
Hannity and Combs is coming up next. Tonight, the next four. What will change for you in the second Bush administration? And can we rebuild our bridges with the rest of the world? Jack Kemp and Geraldine Ferrara will join us. Red versus blue. High turnout but surprising results. Are the numbers worse than the result for Democrats? And Mrs. America? Laura Bush's second term. All that plus Americans who want to flee to Canada because of the election. Up next on Hannity and Combs.
That was a good one. Honey, did you get it?
What would you do on your own private island? Check your mail for the Capital One No Hassle Island giveaway. You could instantly win your own island for one of hundreds of island getaways.
What's in your wallet?
Stunning's a good word.
Sensual, passionate,
finicky, not missing the details.
Playful?
Surprising.
Definitely eclectic.
Contemporary. A touch of artiste.
Fabulous.
Solid.
Rugged.
Simple, open, uncomplicated.
Colorful.
Unique, original.
Beautiful inside and out.
Anderson Windows. Long live the home.
Nobody in our office was as productive as Clay. Of course, he's got a natural advantage.
High 6. It's easier when you have 12 fingers. 12-fingered little B. Just busy, busy, busy.
I think you misspelled Memo. It's hard to keep pace with Clay, work-wise.
How can you compete?
It's not natural, you know. It's like power of a 10, not power of a dozen.
Clay definitely has an edge. The great thing is the rest of us caught up.
Now everyone can do more for less. Upgrade your office with Dell desktops featuring Intel Pentium 4 processors with HD technology.
Now, we can all make an impact like Clay, each and every one of us.
Right now, get double the memory for free and free shipping, plus great deals on other select desktops starting at only $349.
Don't worry about Clay. He repurposed and found a niche.
Did you get the memo?
I think he's comfortable in. We are.
Get more out of productivity with Dell, and get more out of now. Dell systems use Intel Pentium 4 processors with HD technology.
Time now for the most ridiculous item of the day. For the first time ever, after 3 #1 New York Times bestsellers, that newspaper has reviewed one of my books, The O'Reilly Factor for Kids. Newsflash, they didn't like it. No, correct that. They didn't actually review the book, they reviewed me. And they don't like me. Now, not liking me is not ridiculous. I can understand why some of you think I'm dubious. But the O'Reilly Factor for Kids book will help every American child who reads it, and I've gotten hundreds of letters attesting to that. However, when you think about it, the fact that the Times doesn't like the O'Reilly Factor for Kids will probably help the book, just like their smearing of President Bush helped him. So thank you, New York Times. The kids salute you. I really don't like them. And finally tonight, the mail. Tons of it on how the media covered the election, a segment highly rated by BillO'Reilly.com premium members. We appreciate you guys very much. Patrick Thompson, Woodstock, Georgia. O'Reilly, you can bash the networks all you want, but guess what? You guys are now the mainstream media. Watch yourself sometime. You are becoming the enemy. To whom, Mr. Thompson? The elite media generally despises us and has done everything possible to destroy the Factor and FNC. The folks are watching us in record numbers, possibly because of that behavior. So, you know, why are we the enemy? Greg Howlett, Monroe, Georgia. O'Reilly, who are you to call anyone arrogant? Have you ever listened to yourself? Doug Heilbrunn, Cincinnati. Bill, you're just as arrogant as the rest of the elite media. It's just that you happen to be right more frequently. Michael Arturo, Hollywood, California. Bill, I too enjoyed watching the elite media eat crow on election night. When will they ever learn that they're not looking out for us? Well, looking out for you is not their agenda, Mr. Arturo. Signed copy of my book by that name, the paperback, on its way to you. Sherry Isham, Bend, Oregon. Bill, excellent analysis of the biases shown by the liberal media. They just don't get the fact that there are millions of intelligent people who prefer President Bush. Andrea Milstein, Lehigh Acres, Florida. Bill, I drive a pickup and legally can carry a gun. I'm a college graduate. There's no red on my neck. I resent the elite media looking down on me, and I'm glad you are looking out for me. Well, it's my privilege, Andrea. You'll get the signed paperback. Who's looking out for you as well? Jason Gilbert, San Diego. Bill, during the primaries, Howard Dean ducked the Factor and lost. John Kerry came in and won. In the election, Bush interviewed with you and won. Kerry didn't show up and lost. Am I sensing a pattern? I hope so, Mr. Gilbert. Eric Hamilton, Gainesville, Florida. Bill, do we really have to start hearing about Hillary so soon? Could we please have a few days of rest? Carl Cullen, Loves Park, Illinois. Bill, I heard you say that you are looking out for Hillary Clinton. That was very nice. Now stop it. You're referring to my new column posted on BillO'Reilly.com, Mr. Cullen. Thank you for reading it. Mrs. Robert Smith, Sheffield, England. O'Reilly, when watching the news, I want a totally unbiased version, not what you think about it. Well, the Factor's not for you then, Mrs. Smith. This is an analysis program run by me. Hard News comes on right before us with Chef Smith, who is not related to you, is he? Michael Jagerbrand, Stockholm, Sweden. O'Reilly, within an hour of the Bush victory, my leftist girlfriend broke up with me. Well, you're better off, Michael. Get a confirmed capitalist as a girlfriend. She will take better care of you. Dave Ortiz, San Diego. Mr. O, I'm a big Lise Wheel fan, so I'm thrilled she is modeling BillO'Reilly Calm Gear. Well, she knows a lot of the proceeds go to charity, Mr. Ortiz, and Lisa's a good person. Now, how about the website? www.foxnews.com/O'Reilly. 2 streams here. Factor Gear, the best in the world, is on this website here. On BillO'Reilly.com, we have other gear designed with the American flag, no spin, and all of that stuff. And please vote in our poll. What motivated your presidential vote on BillO'Reilly.com? And please email us with pitted comments. O'Reilly@FoxNews.com, O'Reilly@FoxNews.com. Name and town. Now remember the name and town, okay? Because if we don't have the name and town, we don't read it. But if we do have the name and town, then we read it. And from anywhere in the world, no bloviating, that is my job. And I do believe I do that job fairly well. And that is it for us today. As always, we thank you for watching The Factor. Please remember the Radio Factor. It's streamed on BillO'Reilly.com, which means every day you can go in there if you're a premium member. And you can listen to the radio program if you're at work when it's on during the day. And Westwood One is the producer of that program. Hannity and Combs will have Jack Kemp. And I'm Bill O'Reilly. We do hope to see you again next time. Have a great weekend. And remember, the spin stops here because we're looking out for you.